Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today I'll be reviewing Pearl by Tim Wagner, the novelization of the motion picture, directed and written by Ty West. I previously reviewed the X novelization on my channel, where I gave it very effusive praise. I've talked about how, I talked in that video about how the X trilogy I really enjoy, particularly X and Pearl. I have since seen Maxine since I recorded that video. I didn't care for Maxine all that much. I thought it was fine. But I like X a lot, maybe not a lot more than I like Pearl, but X is my favorite of the bunch. And I know that that's probably a minority opinion. Pearl is the internet favorite. It's the one where all the memes were made about it. But I think X is a overall stronger story than Pearl, which is much more of a character study. But I do still like the movie a lot. So going into this, I had that kind of expectation that I would enjoy this less than I enjoyed the X novelization, just because of that, that disparity between my opinions of the original movies themselves. And that ended up holding true. I thought this was a very, very good book, but it didn't wow me the same way that the X novelization did. If you're unfamiliar with Pearl, I'll give you a brief rundown. So it is a prequel to X, in which we get to know the character of Pearl, who was one of the antagonists of that book slash movie. This is her as a young woman in 1918. Her husband Howard is away fighting in the Great War, and she is stuck at home on her farm with a very domineering mother who doesn't allow any kind of fun, who's very stingy with money, stingy with food, very forcing Pearl to do a lot of work around the farm, particularly because Pearl's father is wheelchair bound. He had a stroke, so he's nonverbal, can't even really move, can't do anything. So she also has to help take care of him. Pearl is very repressed sexually. A lot of this book is time spent in Pearl's head of her trying to express that sexuality and having it be not met, or being met but not to her expectations, and just kind of her descent into madness, crossing certain barriers that she had not previously crossed. It is a good story, and I think that the character of Pearl is a really great one. I think there's a reason that people loved the movie so much and they related to Pearl in some capacity. It was a real, good for her type movie. But I do think that a major draw of the movie is Mia Goth's performance of the character. Not just the character, it's specifically the way that Mia Goth plays her. So obviously with a book, that aspect is missing. It's all just what you've got cast in your head. And I mean, obviously, if you're reading this, you're just imagining Mia Goth scenes anyway. But then that leads me to the conclusion about why bother reading this if you're just gonna picture that performance again and not add anything else to it. Then just watch the movie. It'll be a little bit faster. Whereas with X, I think that this was a great compliment to the movie because there's a lot more characters in this one. It's more of an ensemble, and we get more time in each character's head, and we get to know them a little bit more. And it truly does add to each character. It fleshes them out a little bit, gives them a little bit extra to latch onto, to feel familiar with. Pearl, the novelization, I don't feel like I know Pearl any better than I did having just watched the movie. I think, I mean, you do get some actions and kind of motivations explained somewhat, but for the most part, I think it's all there on film. And I don't know that this added too much extra to the conversation. That being said, I do still think it's a very well-written book. It reads very quickly. Tim Wagner, obviously, just like an X, understands the material, understands the character, doesn't embellish too much that would be out of character for them, and it does it bolsters, I think, the eroticism of the ideas present in Pearl a little bit more. My recollection of Pearl, I've only seen it once, and it was kind of a while ago, was that while it dealt with kind of sexual repression a bit, it was more hidden and muted, and it was much more just about Pearl's actions, like outward actions that were visible to us. This, I think, reads a lot more erotic because there's a lot more of her spending time in her head and her sexual fantasies and things like that. So that's like a little bit of an addition that kind of changes the flavor of this a little bit. But again, I think it's all there on screen. So it's not adding too much extra, but it's good. It's still good. It's still a good character. It's still a great character and a good story. And I love the packaging that A24 is putting this in. The books look great together. I love the designs of them. The question now for me is, do I get Maxine just to complete the set? Because, like I said, I didn't care for the Maxine movie all that much. I thought it was fine. I think if it wasn't part of this trilogy, I probably wouldn't think twice about it. Um, but then there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe the novelization will make it better. Like maybe it'll flesh out the things that weren't as fleshed out that I didn't enjoy as much in the movie. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably end up getting it. I just need to be a completionist and just have all three. So maybe keep an eye out for that video. I don't know when that comes out. I think it's in 2025. So maybe another month or two. Back to Pearl. My arbitrary and subjective grade for Pearl by Tim Wagner, the novelization of the movie, written and directed by Ty West, is I'll give it a 7.5 out of 5. Out of 5, 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 out of 5 would be a great reading. 7.5 out of 10. Do with that what you will. Like I said, it is a very good book. I think that you could probably just be satisfied with the film. Not as much fun to me as the X novelization. Let me know if you have read this book and your thoughts on it in the comments below. Let me also know your thoughts about the Pearl movie versus the X movie versus Maxine. Let's talk about that as well. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.